Hey friends, it's Mary Giordano, and welcome to Unapologetically Wild. Every single day, you have a choice. You can stay where you are, or you can step into the possibility of something even greater. And I'm here to spark that flame within you and inspire you to show up, embrace the fear, and do the fucking thing. Messy, scared, and real. Let's get started. Hey friends, welcome back to Unapologetically Wild. There's something I've been noticing more and more lately, and nobody really talks about it, but there's a shift that happens to women's friendships in midlife. Not a dramatic thing, not a fallout, more like a slow fade that you don't even notice. And it's not because something went wrong. Life just got full, and somewhere in the middle of managing careers, maybe kids, aging parents, and a body that's doing things no one warned you about, your world got smaller. And some women have that person, the one who's been there through everything, the one you can call when it all goes sideways, and some women don't. But either way, outside of that inner circle or absence of one, it gets pretty thin pretty fast. A lot of names in your phone, but not a lot of people who actually know what's going on with you right now. Not the curated version, the real one. And normal starts to feel sufficient until it doesn't. Now, I want to be honest here because I think the distinction matters. There's a big difference between being alone and being lonely. I spent years with a very small circle and I wasn't lonely. I was actually thriving. Some women genuinely do well with less social contact. That's real. So I'm not here to tell you that being alone automatically means something is wrong. But here's the question that's worth asking. Has your world gotten so small that you've stopped being challenged by it? Because you can be perfectly content and still be shrinking. And that's the part no one talks about. What happens as we age is you get protective of your time, your energy, your weekends, your bedtime. You stop saying yes to things that feel like obligations. And honestly, that's really good. A lot of that needed to go. The performative brunches, the friendships that only survived because of proximity, the people you kept around out of guilt or habit, shedding that stuff is really healthy. And there's a reason why this happens in midlife specifically, because this is when you finally stop caring. You stop trying to impress people. You stop managing how you come across. You have more clarity about who you are and what you want than you've ever had in the past. And that's a powerful place to be. But the flip side of that, your world contracts. You shed the dead weight and then you don't replace it with anything. You just get smaller. Everything might feel like it runs smoother, but nothing really lights you up anymore. And you tell yourself that's maturity, that's being selective, that you just prefer being a homebody now. And look, maybe some of that is true. But I'd push back on the idea that preferring comfort is always the same thing as choosing what you actually need, because those are two very different things. What I've watched happen, and I mean watched up close dozens of times now, is that when women in midlife get into the right environment, around the right people, something cracks open fast. Not in a woo-woo spiritual way, but in a holy shit, I forgot this part of me existed kind of way. I see it on my group trips all the time. I saw it in Bali when we rappelled down a waterfall, and most recently in Banff when we did a via ferrata at Mount Norquay. If you don't know what a via ferrata is, basically you're climbing up the face of a mountain. Not a trail, the face. You're in a harness, clipped to steel cables that are bolted into the rock, and you're moving across open rock with nothing underneath you but a whole lot of air. There are sections where you're on iron rungs drilled into a cliff wall, sections where you're crossing a suspension bridge between two rock faces with the valley wide open below you, and there are vertical climbs, literally straight up, where you're gripping metal holds and your legs are doing work they may not have ever done before. You are 100% exposed, and there's no pretending you're not up there. We all did the safety training at the bottom, simple enough when you're standing on flat ground. Then you start climbing, and it's a different conversation entirely. There were several moments on this via ferrata. I could see it on everyone's face where their brain caught up to what their body just committed to. You look up at this vertical section and everything in you says no. Not out loud, but you can see it. That internal negotiation happening in real time. Women stopping, looking up, deciding whether to trust themselves enough to keep going. And none of us were cheering from the sidelines like some motivational movie. We were all right there in it, dealing with our own version of that same exact moment. And there's something that happens when you watch another woman move through something hard without pretending it's easy. It changes what you think you're capable of, not because she told you, but because you saw it. Your nervous system registered the proof in real time. Every single woman I was with made it to the top of that mountain. And after this Via Ferrata was all said and done, two of the women I was with talked to me separately. They both mentioned how they'd hit a point on the climb where they looked up and their only thought was, my body cannot physically do this. Not, this is scary, not, I'm nervous. Literally, I am not physically capable of what's in front of me right now. But guess what? They did it anyway. One of them had tears at the top, not because she was afraid, because something broke open. Her brain finally got the message that the story she'd been telling herself about what she could and couldn't handle, that story was all wrong. And the other woman said something that also stuck with me. She said she stood at the bottom of those vertical climbs and just stared up at it thinking, there is no fucking way. And when she got to the top, her words, fuck yes, I did it. She said people throw the phrase around, but it was life-changing, not because of the mountain, because she finally had proof that she could do hard things, that the only thing stopping her had been the narrative in her own head. That's not a trip, that's evidence. Evidence that you're not done expanding, that the right environment with the right women will pull something out of you that your current routine never will. So if this is real, if expansion is possible at any age, if the capacity is still there, then why aren't more women experiencing it? Well, it's because of the story they've settled into. And it's not a dramatic story. It's not, I've given up. It's actually quieter than that. And it sounds really reasonable. It sounds like, I just don't have the time right now, or I'm more of a homebody these days, or my people are my people at this point. I'm not really looking for new friends. And the sneaky one that I hear all the time, and I even say myself, I'm just an introvert. Now, I'm not saying none of that is real. Some of it might be, but I challenge you to look at which of those statements are actually true and which ones are just comfortable. Because there's a big difference between knowing yourself and building a cage out of your own identity and calling it self-awareness. Let's take the I don't have time statement for a second. You don't have time for what? You have time for Netflix. You have time for scrolling. You have time for the things that don't ask anything of you. What you don't have time for is discomfort. And that's a different conversation. What about my people are my people? Okay, and I love that loyalty, but if your people are all in the exact same season of life, thinking the same way, doing the same things, that's not a circle. That's an echo chamber. And echo chambers don't expand you, they confirm you. There's a difference. And let's take the big one, the one I even say myself. I'm an introvert. Maybe, or maybe you've been operating in environments that drain you and you've confused that with not wanting to be around people. Because I've watched self-described introverts come on my trips and absolutely come alive, myself included. Not because they suddenly become extroverts, because the environment was right. The people were right. The pressure to perform was gone. And it turns out they didn't dislike connection. They disliked the version of connection they'd been settling for. None of this is about shaming yourself for where you are. It's about getting honest about whether the life you've built is actually the life you want, or just the one that stops scaring you. Because when things stop scaring you, they usually stop growing you too. Now, I want to make a distinction here that I think matters. Not all friendships do the same thing for you. And that's not a criticism, it's just reality. Some of the people in your life are there because of history. You've known each other forever, you have shared context, you can pick up right where you left off, even if you haven't talked in 6 months. And that is so refreshing. Those relationships, they matter. They hold you, they remind you where you came from. They're the people who knew you before you had any of it figured out, and they loved you anyway. But they're not necessarily the people who are going to push you into something new. Because when everyone in your world has known you as the same version of yourself for 20 years, there's an unspoken contract. You are this person. You do these things. You operate within this range. Nobody says that out loud, but it's there and it's comfortable for everyone, including yourself. Expansion relationships are very different. They don't have a history with the old version of you. They meet you in the middle of something new, a new environment, a new challenge, a new experience. They don't know what you usually do. So there's no ceiling, no expectation to stay the same. And something wild happens in those spaces. You say things you haven't said before. You try things you wouldn't try in front of people who've known you forever. Not because your old friends are holding you back, but because novelty gives you permission that your longtime friends can't. Most women in midlife have plenty of maintenance relationships. What they're starving for, and often don't realize it, are expansion relationships. The kind where you walk away and think, Who was that version of me? I kind of liked her. And this isn't just my opinion. The Harvard study of adult development has been tracking people for over 85 years. It's the longest running study on human happiness ever conducted. And their biggest finding? Your satisfaction with your relationships in midlife is a better predictor of your physical health than your cholesterol levels. Not your diet, not your fitness routine, not your income, your relationships. That's how much this matters. And here's one that should stop you in your tracks. The U.S. Surgeon General declared loneliness a public health epidemic in 2023. The health risks of chronic loneliness are comparable to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. 15. So when we're talking about the quality of your relationships and whether they're actually growing you, this isn't a soft topic. This is a health conversation. You don't have to choose between maintenance and expansion relationships, but you do have to notice if one is completely missing from your life. Because if every relationship you have is comfortable, familiar, and predictable, you're being maintained. You're not being expanded. So what does an expansion relationship actually look like in real life? Because I can talk about the concept all damn day, but what I'd rather do is tell you what I've actually watched happen. Here's what I think people underestimate about women in midlife: the amount you're carrying that nobody sees. Your body is doing things nobody prepared you for. Hormones are shifting, sleep is disappearing, physical changes that you're just supposed to manage, on top of careers that either need reinventing or escaping, aging parents, relationships that are shifting or ending or requiring more from you than they used to. You're in one of the most demanding stretches of your life, and from the outside, it just looks like you're fine because you always look fine. That's what you do. And somewhere along the way, you stopped talking about it. Not because you didn't want to, but because you didn't want to be a burden or because you assumed everyone else was dealing with their own version of it. So why add yours to the pile? That's the thing I watch disappear on my trips. That's silence. The average age of the women who come on my group trips is late 40s to late 50s and into their 60s and sometimes even 70. They come from different states, different careers, different life situations. Most of them don't know a single other person when they show up. And there's always that first night. Everyone's polite, a little careful, still feeling each other out. But by day 2, it's a completely different room. And it's not because of some team building exercise or forced vulnerability circle. It's because someone mentions a hot flash and suddenly 5 women are laughing and swapping stories and the walls just come down. It's because one woman says something honest about her marriage or her body or her mother, and another woman across the table exhales like she's been holding her breath for a fucking year. That's what happens when you put women in the same season of life into an environment where no one's performing. The pretense drops fast. And what's underneath it is this immediate, almost startling recognition. Oh, you too? And there's actually science behind why this happens so fast with women specifically. UCLA researchers found that women respond to stress differently than men. Instead of fight or flight, women release oxytocin, which drives them toward connection. They called it the tend and befriend response. So when women are in a challenging environment together, physically, emotionally, whatever, their biology is literally pulling them toward each other. That bonding you see happen in 48 hours on a trip, that's not random. That's how women are wired. And I've seen it play out over and over and over again. I've watched women who met 72 hours ago hold space for each other in ways that some people don't experience in friendships that span decades. Not because they're better friends, because the environment stripped away everything that usually gets in the way. No roles to play, no history to manage, no reputation to protect, just women being exactly where they are, out loud with other women who get it without needing an explanation. And nobody's trying to impress anyone. That's the part that makes midlife friendships so different from the ones you had at 25 and maybe even 30, 35. At this age, you don't care about looking cool or saying the right thing. You care about substance. You care about whether the person across from you is real. And when you find that, when you're sitting at a dinner table on a mountain in Canada or on a beach in Bali and the woman next to you just gets it, that's not networking. That's the kind of connection most women forget they were allowed to have. And the research backs that up too. Studies published in the Journal of Women and Aging found that women who had a few close, authentic relationships showed greater psychological well-being during menopause than women with larger but more superficial networks. It's not about how many people are in your life. It's about whether the ones who are there are real. Oh, and one more thing, research shows that women with stronger friendship networks actually feel younger than their chronological age. So if you needed one more reason to stop treating friendships like a luxury, there it is. So I've been talking about what I've watched happen to other women on these trips, but I want to be honest about something I didn't expect. They've changed me too. I built these environments. I chose the destinations, set the tone, curated the experience. I thought I was creating something for them, and I was. But what I wasn't prepared for was how much witnessing their expansion would shift something in me. When you watch a woman in her 40s, 50s, or 60s stand at the bottom of a cliff face and tell herself she can't do it, and then she does it, that doesn't just change her. It changes you. When you sit across from someone at dinner who just walked away from a 30-year career and she's terrified but she's not going back, that recalibrates something in your own head about what's possible. Expansion is contagious, not in a pushy way, not because anyone's giving you a pep talk or telling you to dream bigger. It happens through proximity. You watch another woman stretch past what she thought she could handle, and something in you quietly adjusts. The bar moves. What felt like a big deal yesterday feels more doable today, not because anything changed in your life, but because you were close enough to someone else's growth that it became real for you too. And I don't think we talk about that enough. We talk about mentors and coaches and people who teach you things, but we don't talk about what happens when you're simply around women who are actively in the middle of becoming more of themselves. There's no lesson, there's no advice. There's just this ambient proof that growth doesn't have an expiration date. That's what these women have given me. And not intentionally, not because they were trying to inspire anyone, just by showing up and doing the fucking thing that scared them. And every single time I come home from a trip, I'm different. Not in a dramatic way, in a what else am I capable of that I haven't tried yet kind of way. They expanded what I believe is possible for myself just by letting me watch them do the same thing. And I never expected that. But I think it just might be the most important part of all of this. So if you've been listening to this and something in you is going, yeah, that's me, I want you to sit with that for a second. Not rush past it, not file it away as something you'll think about later, because later is how women end up 10 years down the road with the same small world, the same routines, the same relationships that are fine but aren't growing them. Later is comfortable. And we've already talked about what comfortable costs you. You don't need to overhaul your entire social life. You don't need to become someone who goes out 5 nights a week, which sounds extremely exhausting. But you do need to ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you were in a room that challenged you? When was the last time you were around women who made you think differently about what you're capable of? If you can't remember, that's not a failure, that's information, and it's telling you something. And this is actually why I do what I do. Not the coaching, not the content, the trips. Because I've watched what happens when women put themselves in an environment that asks more of them than their regular life does. I've watched it change how they see themselves. I've watched strangers become the kind of friends most people spend a lifetime looking for in a matter of days, sometimes even hours. If any part of this episode has resonated with you, I do have something coming up. My Thailand trip sold out so fast that I added a second one. Thailand 2.0, December 2026. If you've been listening to this episode thinking, I need that, all the details are in the show notes. But whether you come on a trip or not, here's what I want you to walk away with today. The parts of you that have gone quiet, they're not gone. They're just waiting for the right room. Stop waiting until you feel ready, until everything feels like it's in its place, and just go find that room. Thanks for tuning in today. If this episode hit home, subscribe and share it with a friend because together we can bring more women into this wild, unapologetic space. Remember, waiting until you feel ready is the fastest way to nowhere. So show up, embrace the fear, and do the fucking thing. And don't forget to subscribe to my Unapologetically Wild Chronicles. The links to the show notes. Until next time, stay wild.